Hello, my name is Peter Parfit. Welcome to the new Brit workshop. We're revisiting the mobile bench project, and in particular the part where we're completing the top. And the reason that I'm doing this is that I've now created the UJK Parf Guide System, and it's on sale through Axminster Tools and Machinery. And that really is the most accurate and most sensible way of doing a top on a custom bench. So I'm redoing the top, and I'm using this video to replace the old one. The old video will stay up for a few more weeks and then I'll remove it. And I'm going to start this video by showing you part of the old one that gets us to the stage where we've got the main frame around the top, the two ends which fold up like so. So let's go back to the old video for a minute or two. I'm going to put a frame all the way around here, and here is that frame, which will help support the MDF. Now, I've made this frame so it's just a fraction, about 1 millimetre wider and 1 millimetre deeper than the top of the frame, and it just fits. And this has been made up with some 40 by 40 millimetre section, good quality timber, and it's got a pair of dominoes at each of the joints, one above the other. The sheet of MDF will go across the top here and will be flush with the outer edges of this frame. I'm going to have some oak around the outside, which will be at such a height that it protects the edge of the MDF and finishes it off nicely, and that'll be flush there. Now, I thought it'd be nice to have some extensions on the bench, and so at each end I've got these pieces that lift up, and of course they need to be supported. So I've made up 4 brackets like this, and they're fixed with some hinges onto the main frame, like so. Now, I've made the hinge arrangement very simple. I'm using some 10 millimetre diameter aluminium rod, and actually it's very easy to set up a hinge which provides an accurate alignment here plus an accurate alignment there. Now, these pieces are temporary. I've got some short ones which will go in for the final fit, and I've drilled a hole in the centre here so that when this is pushed in and it's flush, if you do need to remove it, you can put a screw in very carefully and drag this out. Now, measuring and marking up and then cutting all these pieces for the extensions of the bench requires a lot of care. In particular, that 10 millimetre hole that goes in each of the 4 side pieces needs to be done very accurately. I've then used that hole and a spare piece of 10mm rod to allow me to do the rounding off, as you see here. I then marked up the centre lines for the 4 40mm diameter holes that I was putting in the ends of the 2 oak side pieces on the main part of the bench. I assembled the end extensions, and then, using the clamping arrangements you see here, drilled the 10mm holes for those aluminium bar hinges. Making up the 4 supports for the extensions was fairly straightforward. I just used 6mm dominoes and no nails, no screws, and it all went together rather nicely. I glued and nailed some support pieces for the MDF tops that were going in these extensions, and then I used some of these screw inserts to get the top fixed in place. I had to put some little blocks in the corners, drilled holes in them, and then screwed the inserts into place. Now, I've used Medite moisture resistant MDF for this, and the reason I've chosen it is it's got a really good hard surface and it's really nice to machine. I reckon it's just about as good as CNC grade high density fibre. I've also put one very quick coat of Osmo Poly-X over it all, and the reason I've done that is that I want to be able to wipe up glue spillages and so on, and that bit of Poly-X will certainly stop that. Now at this stage, let me just point out that I've made a very slight modification. If you're looking at the plans, you need to just bear this in mind. In order to be more economical with the MDF, I've used just the sheet width there, which is 1220 millimeters. And that has meant that I've had to fill in this little section here and here with a little piece of solid oak. Now before we start doing the 20 millimeter holes, I'm just going to put in the holes for the security screws, which are at each of the corners of these pieces. Having drilled those holes through from underneath, I now need to do the counterbore for the head of the screws. And of course with a Forstner bit that's very difficult. So I've just cut a hole in a piece of wood. I'm going to hold it roughly in place and start my cut. And once I've made a start, I can then continue to the right depth. That's it. Simple as that. Now at this stage, it really is worthwhile taking the time to work out where you want the holes to actually be. And for me, I want to make sure that my holes on this side are very close to this edge so that I can get a screw in to hold the Parf dog in here, and the same up there. Now the way the Parf Guide system works is really simple, but please look at one of my other videos which goes into the detail. But as a quick summary, what we're going to do is, using these Parf sticks, we're going to lay out a pattern of 3 millimeter holes across our work surface. Once that's done, we're going to use this 20 millimeter guide block to position this special 20 millimeter drill bit, which will then make the various 20 millimeter holes that we require. Now, having done my planning, I've worked out that I want a hole here, and once one hole's in place, everything else will follow naturally. So I've marked the spot, and I'm going to use the 3 millimeter drill guide and a 3 millimeter bit, and I'm going to drill straight through here. So that's that one. Now we're going to use the Parf sticks to set up a pattern of 3 millimeter holes across our work surface, which we are then going to enlarge to 20 millimeter holes. Now, in order to start the process off, we need to develop our 6, 8 and 10 rule as shown. Unfortunately, we don't have 3 Parf sticks, so what we're going to do is to start by clamping one Parf stick on one edge of our board and drilling a series of 3 millimeter holes through it. We can then take the 2 Parf sticks that come with the Parf Guide system and arrange them as shown, and we'll use pins to keep them in the right position so we have the right angle at the top right hand corner. Once that's in position, we are going to clamp the vertical Parf stick, and then we can then drill holes through it. We then end up with our first row and our first column of holes at right angles. We repeat the process on the left hand side, and we then end up with our second column. We then need to do some checks, and the first thing to do is put a Parf stick across the bottom and make sure that those pins fit neatly into the holes. Then we can do our 6, 8 and 10 check as shown. And providing everything's okay, we can proceed to the next stage and drill out the holes along that bottom Parf stick. Once we've done that, we can drill the remaining holes between the top row and the bottom row. Then we end up with a complete pattern of holes as shown. We can extend the holes to the left and right, and we do that at the top and the bottom, and then fill in the holes in between. Now this is the line where the Parf dogs are going to go, and I want to have my top Parf dog clear of this top row. And so I'm going to show you a technique for doing an offset hole, and it's a question of experimentation, and I want my hole to be about here, and I've just gone through and sort of eyeballed where I might get an intersection down here with a hole, and I think that one, which is 1, 2, 3 and from the centre, will be about right. It's on the second row. So I'm going to try it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. So that goes in like that. Now I've now positioned the second Parf stick symmetrical with the other. There's my centre line. That was 3 across there. So 1, 2, 3. So if I put this through here. And the theory is that where these two intersect, like so, just there. That's the intersection. Because this is an isosceles triangle, and there's my centre line, then this point is also on that centre line, and so if I clamp this now in place, I can drill, and that will be the perfect place for my top Parf dog. And so there's my extra hole, which will allow me to have my top Parf dog offset up here. However, when we come to use the guide block, it needs to have some additional 3mm holes to fix the guide block so I can do the 20mm drilling. So I've got to now create a hole here and a hole here. Right, so for me, that's all the holes that I need. Whenever you're laying out a pattern for a custom bench or track saw cutting station, it's a good idea to hang on to some 3mm holes after you've finished doing the 20mm drilling. The reason for that is you can then expand your system again if you need to. But if you've drilled all of the 20mm holes out, every single one, then you'll have nothing to go back to and use as a reference point for the Parf sticks. So leave at least a pair of holes in the same column or a pair of holes in the same row, which are no further apart than one Parf stick, so that you can then latch onto those to do some future work. And each time you use the 20mm guide block for the first time, put a tiny bit of oil on the shaft, and that way that will work all day with no problem at all. I should just explain why I've got these little bits of masking tape here. This will be the saw kerf line, so I'm not going to enlarge any of these holes in that line to 20mm. There's absolutely no need. I'll never want to put a dog in any of those holes. And I'm just going to cut this odd one that we've put all the way up here. And you remember I put a little 3mm hole there and a 3mm hole there. That now allows me to line up just like that, and I can now cut this hole. There we go. Now it's time to switch to the other drilling position. And I'm going to move the 20mm bit from there to here, and because we're starting in a new position, I'm going to put a dash of oil on here. Good engineering practice to do that with bearings. That's nice and tight. Take that off there, and now we're going to use the Veritas small bench dogs from Lee Valley to position our guide block. And if you ever get one of those little discs stuck on the end of the drill bit, do take it off, because otherwise it acts like a washer and it slows the whole process down a huge amount. Well, that's the top done, and it was a lot easier using the UJK Parf Guide System. Now, this system is really accurate, and I do recommend you take a look at some of the other videos I've made about it. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.